Bienvenue to medieval Paris, a city in the vice grip of a puritanical tyrant, where the suffering is most certainly the point. The Hunchback of Notre Dame opens on Clopin's dark tale. A small band of gypsies enter Paris under cover of night, seeking safe passage into the city and sanctuary therein. But Judge Claude Frollo is waiting with armed guards, and the travelers no sooner arrive than are surrounded and seized, except one desperate woman who flees the scene, carrying a bundle assumed to be stolen goods. Frollo chases her down on horseback, a massive black draft horse like a biblical horseman's steed, and flings her to the stone steps of the cathedral where she dies. He unwraps the parcel to discover a disfigured infant and resolves to drown it, declaring it an unholy demon. "I'm sending it back to hell where it belongs," he tells the archdeacon, who endeavors to dissuade him. "See there the innocent blood you have spilt on the steps of Notre Dame. Now you would add this child's blood to your guilt." Frollo dismisses him. "I am guiltless, she ran, I pursued." But the dehumanizing terminology he uses to describe the gypsies, vermin, reveals his genocidal motives. Compliance would not have saved the mother of Quasimodo, or Quasimodo himself. It is the archdeacon and his appeal to a divine wrath and a divine justice that spares the deformed child, the life unworthy of life, according to Claude Frollo. "You can lie to yourself and your minions," the archdeacon warns, "but you never can run from nor hide what you've done from the eyes of Notre Dame." From the perspective of the judge, Notre Dame is a symbol of God and his ruthless retribution. But according to Clopin, Notre Dame is the soul of Paris, and thus her eyes are the eyes of the city itself. Disney meticulously distinguishes between a man of faith and a fascistic monster who employs the language of the church to dole out punishment disproportionate to crime, and even in the absence of wrongdoing. According to the alphabet Frollo teaches Quasimodo, A is for abomination, B is for blasphemy, C is for contrition, D is for damnation. The writers continue to assert throughout the story the all-important disparity between a life of voluntary service and a life of power and control. The lies Frollo tells Quasimodo about his origins lack the art of real artifice. They are merely the diametric opposite of truth, delivered with an air of faux compassion and concern for the welfare of his ward. "When your heartless mother abandoned you as a child, anyone else would have drowned you." Not a creative piece of deception, but a projection of his own unbounded cruelty transposed upon an anonymous other. Frollo's efforts to manipulate Quasimodo, with terror of the outside world, shame over his misshapen form, and fealty to his benefactor, rely on a combination of ignorance, isolation, and emotional puppet mastery. "The world is cruel. The world is wicked. It's I alone who you can trust in this whole city. I am your only friend." He catalogues his acts of benevolence, including his ability to look upon Quasimodo without fear, and frames his domination as the only means by which he can protect him. In an explicit display of indoctrination, Frollo says a line and Quasimodo echoes it. "You are deformed, I am deformed, and you are ugly, and I am ugly. Be faithful to me, I am faithful. Grateful to me, I am grateful." By weaponizing the intolerance he himself perpetuates, Frollo keeps Quasimodo in a cage of his own misplaced loyalties and trepidation towards an evil unknown. As Quasimodo submissively observes, "You are my one defender." When Captain Phoebus reports to Judge Frollo at the Palace of Justice, the ironic nature of the place name becomes immediately apparent. The crack of a whip greets the captain on his entry, and Frollo's instructions to the torturer to "wait between lashes, otherwise the old sting will dull him to the new," indicative of his fetishistic relationship with brutality, which is exemplified as much by his extreme ease in inflicting pain as by his orders. At his soberest, he treats an atrocity with indifference, but more commonly, he treats it as a pleasantry, if not a pleasure. This is contrasted with his new captain of the guard's poorly concealed discomfort, even after witnessing doubtlessly worse in combat. Phoebus wasn't trained to relish in the anguish of others, nor to exercise wanton force. It is the judge's deranged, punitive excesses that disturb him. Phoebus learns that Frollo summoned him to purge the city of those he reviles as social contaminants. The judge explains that the gypsies live outside the normal order. Their heathen ways inflame the people's lowest instincts and mislead the weak-minded, that the real war was with them, and that, despite his best efforts, they have thrived. He demonstratively crushes ants under his fingers, then overturns a stone to reveal a mass of them, likening the gypsies' suspected hiding place to a nest within the city walls. He calls this perceived cultural invasion the city's darkest hour, and makes overwhelmingly clear his intention to eradicate those he deems deviant and thus undesirable, whose very existence is an affront to his pious ideals. For all his antipathy towards the rabble, Frollo allows the worst elements of the festival to torment Quasimodo after he's crowned the King of Fools, delaying Phoebus' intervention and forbidding Esmeralda from breaking Quasimodo's bonds. Her defiance shocks and infuriates him, even more than her earlier dance, at which he feigned disgust. When she protests his abuses of the least fortunate, he answers her demand for fairness with a threat of arrest. And when she escapes in a blast of smoke, the same trick Clopin used to introduce her on stage, Frollo condemns it as witchcraft, a word that carries the weight of the gallows, which he alludes to when he takes hold of her neck and confides his sadistic fantasy of seeing it in a noose. This he does in the cathedral after the archdeacon rebukes him for attempting to violate its status as sanctuary and reminds him to respect the sanctity of the church. The judge repeatedly proves that he regards the church's mercy as an obstacle and the faith's grimmest features as instrumental. Even as he works to obstruct its lawful protections, he exploits its doctrine as justification for his hate. So typical of your kind, he tells Esmeralda, to twist the truth to cloud the mind with unholy thoughts. Under the eyes of the saints, he freely trespasses against Esmeralda, because in his eyes she is entitled to nothing, not even the autonomy to decline his advances.